but for the power of what storytelling does, which is to bring us all closer together, and for the time period that you're in that story, you are just fully immersed in understanding something for yourself in a way that you don't ordinarily if it's just a news story or a news item.
One of the things I loved about your film is a very small cast, and it's so intimately filmed. It's so sparse in a way of what you see, but also what you hear. So you only hear women's voices apart from Rachel's very young son. I guess I wondered if that was a conscious choice, because it really, on a subconscious level, people connect with what's going on here.
Yeah, it's very conscious. Everything is very intentional. It was very sparse on the page. I really wanted to lean into the visual storytelling that belongs to cinema. So much of it is conveyed through just looks and subtext, because we also deal with really smart audiences who understand storytelling, and it's really understanding their sophistication in being able to read those visual cues. You know, everything is deliberate. I did only want the voices of those whose reproductive rights were affected, other than, you know, the son, who is the future male ally that we hope for. But just to come back as well to the whole, you know, predominantly female voices of it all. I mean, that carried through even to the extent of the music in the film. All of those songs had male vocals on them. And in fact, there is a car road trip scene that is supposed to be a moment of lightness. This is the first time these characters have been out of Arkansas. They have never left the state. And of course, they're going for this really tragic reason that they can't get the healthcare within their own state, and they have to go 2 states across at great expense. But the song that's been coming through that they're singing to, those are my daughters.
I was going to ask you about it, because I know they were pivotal, because weren't they the first to know about your film and the first to read your script?
Absolutely. They're Ramon and Alyssa. They're going to actually do the Oscars with me, which I'm so happy about. I woke up one morning, it was like a Friday night, I was just preoccupied with all the stories that I was hearing about what the reversal of Roe v. Wade meant in real terms, and so quickly for so many. I just was so preoccupied. I woke up, had the story entirely in my head the very next morning on the Saturday, and I basically pitched it to each one of them and just to kind of stress test my idea, and was it impenetrable? And seeing their reaction meant I had to write it. So I wrote it in about 2 or 3 hours the next day, and they were my first readers.
Wow. I'm just struck by your contrast of your film, Anisha. You know, you I guess didn't know what you were getting, because you were filming over years, weren't you? And actually watching your film, you get the sense of that time passing. The trial itself was 14 months. But actually, we're talking 7 to 8 years, if I'm correct.
The whole film took 8 years to make.
Wow.
From research, the research was 1.5 years. The filming was 3, and then the edit was 3. So interesting when you were talking about your daughters. That's your daughter singing.
Yes.
Yes. And To Kill a Tiger, the opening scene, she's kind of putting bows in her hair. That's her singing. It's her voice humming. And then at the end of the film is her father singing. And the end song is a song called Mera Chanda Hai Tu.
Yeah, I know that song.
Yeah. And it was a lullaby that he would sing to her when she was a baby. And it's a very famous Hindi language lullaby. And it was so moving. It was so beautiful. In retrospect, this idea of kind of starting with her voice and ending with his voice.
It's so nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it was because, in a way, the journey of the film and what they had gone through was about finding who they were. Literally, it was about sort of finding those voices.
I speak Bengali fluently, but I also grew up with a lot of Indian cinema, so I do know that song. Yeah. And actually, there's a power if you understand the translation of it. Chanda hai tu, mera chanda hai tu. You are the moon, you are the dawn. It's just so resonant, actually, if you understand the lyrics of that, how you tie that up together thematically.
We're almost touching on some of the points actually about To Kill a Tiger that I wanted to bring up, because people will think, I know this story, and this is a very straightforward story in the sense of, this is what happens and this is their fight. But actually, it's set in a real cultural context, and you get to understand exactly what this family are kind of living through and going through. And they are in a very remote village, and they face a lot of opposition from people that they were once very good friends with. And one of the things that really struck me when watching your film is how it's very easy for us to moralize. And this is a community that has to live together, and that has to live in peace, and they have to find a resolution. And, you know, if I'm being very honest, that murkiness lies in all of us, whether we want to confront it or not. And that's what I thought was so entrancing about your film, and why it crosses actually so many cultural divides. Is that something you were aware of when you were doing it?
Yeah, for sure. I've spent over the years so much time in India. I also grew up with a lot of anger in terms of gender injustice and those issues that I experienced and saw. So I was fueled by a lot of rage, and I think my films were really angry initially. And it was over the years just spending time in India and starting to understand how complex that culture is and how complex that place is. Actually, every place is really complex. We have no right to judge anything. We have a responsibility to fight for justice and to ensure as much as possible that we do good in the world, but without judgment and without acrimony, you know, because the acrimony just breeds more acrimony. This is a philosophy that is important to me, and it's also important to my crew. You know, all three of us, it's my husband who shoots with me. So I think what we do is we just create a space that allows for complexity and allows for people just to really be who they are.
It's about trying to connect as human beings. My story was set up to be a bridge across this political divide. Whether, you know, you're living in the political terminology being a red state or a blue state or whatever, it's irrelevant. This is a very human story, and it transcends the politics of a situation because it's about our humanity. And it's not a one-way street. It's a conversation that requires evolution on both sides, and for us to understand each other's mindsets, but always towards the common goal of compassion, integrity, seeing another person, enabling them the space to be human.
There are points in To Kill a Tiger where you, as a viewer, are very frightened for this family because you realise the threat they face from their own community. And there is a point where the filmmakers are also threatened and you have to switch your camera. How did you negotiate that? And over the course of your filming, were there points where you thought, I can't do this anymore, you know, their safety is in real jeopardy?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there are the scenes that are in the film, and then there are things that happened that we didn't put in the film. There was a moment early on when we were filming, people came in and asked us